However, he really is a hardcore, old-time hockey fan. Recently, Jen sat down with him to find out how hardcore he really is.
So, Peter, you grew up in Canada.
I did.
And developed a passion for this great sport of hockey. What is it that attracts you to this sport?
I think in Canada they pump it into your bloodstream young. It is part of being Canadian. And, you know, Canada's very cold in the winter. It's a great, vast country. It's a country that appreciates speed, has a sense of physicality about it, physicalness about it, and I think hockey is all those things.
Now, growing up, did you have dreams of hoisting that cup over your head someday?
No, I didn't. I had a feeling you might ask. I had never had any desire to play in the NHL. But I certainly played hockey. I played hockey all the way through high school. I played very briefly for a Navy team. I went on playing pickup hockey for years and years after that. I think the NHL was such magic to us as kids that unless you were a full-time dedicated hockey player, and even then I thought you had to either live only in Quebec or in the prairies, the NHL was just way out of reach.
Now, you were a Leafs fan growing up?
Well, I have a rather strange history. See, I was very young and grew up in Toronto until I was about 12. My dad worked for the CBC and was a great friend of Foster Hewitt's, the great hockey commentator. So we'd go to Maple Leaf Gardens on Saturday night, and I had sort of great Leaf heroes. And then I went to Ottawa after they had an NHL team and before they had the new one. That was difficult. Then I worked in Montreal, and I ended up in New York and a Red Wings fan. So it's hard. It's hard if you've moved around the world as much as I have to carry one loyalty with you all that time.
Do you remember the first time you saw the Stanley Cup?
The first time I ever saw it up close, ironically, I mean, I'd seen it hoisted as anybody had, but the first time I ever had a chance to look at it was in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. But now you have it all the time. It's always on the road with somebody.
Yes, it is. But that's great because it's a trophy that really is very visible and accessible to the fans. And we were talking a bit about that. You were remarking about you guys have done a piece on the Cup.
We did a piece on the Evening News on how it is the most accessible trophy in all of sports. And we did a wonderful piece on how it's been to the Kremlin and the White House and Yankee Stadium. It's been out in Hollywood. It's very typical of hockey. I still think hockey players are the most accessible in all the sports. And so, in some respects, the accessibility of the trophy, of the cup, is rather still the way hockey is.
Your thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals? Do you have maybe a bit of a prediction?
I have only strong feelings about one team. I do not like the Colorado Avalanche.
And why is that?
Sorry, Av fans. Because they used to be the Quebec Nordiques. They went to Colorado. They won the Stanley Cup in the first year, and nobody suffered. Now, you're supposed to suffer in hockey. And Quebec Nordiques fans suffered. The Maple Leaf fans have suffered forever. Ranger fans. Everybody suffered. Colorado won the Stanley Cup in the first year. It's ludicrous.
We have a lot of people in this country that I think are still sort of finding their way and feeling their way about in getting to know the sport of hockey.
Yeah, you're touching another sore spot now, you know, especially at Stanley Cup
it's
time.
Just not my day.
You know, I work for Disney, right? And I told Michael Eisner it is unacceptable to me that a team south of the Mason-Dixon line should win the Stanley Cup. Now, that's very hard for someone who grew up in Canada. And yet I go to the South, and you realize that the hockey's just turned Southern fans on. And so in many ways it really fits. It fits in there with, you know, it sort of fits with NASCAR, among other things.
If you could maybe tell the folks watching that have not really experienced the game of hockey, why should they turn it on and watch the Stanley Cup Finals?
Why to watch hockey? It's the greatest game on earth. There's just simply no other game that is like it all the time.
Now, do you plan to attend the Stanley Cup Finals?
Can you get me a ticket?
Absolutely.
Done.
Well, Game 1 is in the books, and the New Jersey Devils have sent a decisive message to the Dallas Stars. Right now, let's take a look at what went on here tonight at the Continental Airlines Arena in this week's Power Performers.
Game 1 started innocently enough, with both teams coming out fired up and scoring in the first.
Behind the net, Sapora's in front, backhander, Belfort, Sapora, score!
But Jen, when this game began, of all people, did you